Roughly 2 months ago, I made it my objective to play through as many of Codemasters racing games as I could in chronological order. Admittedly, I was never one who sampled any of their work from the early to mid-2000s, being mostly a connoisseur of the Formula 1 titles that they're now known for. The most experience I had with any of their games was the generational banger known as Jarrett and Labonte's Stock Car Racing for the original PlayStation. So when deciding to play through the titles I had missed out on, I was curious to see how the games and the engine evolved as the years progressed. That said, last week I dove into Toka Race Driver 3 for the very first time, playing it on PCSX2 on my PC. I not only enjoyed the experience, finding it fun, albeit with its career mode that gets unnecessarily difficult towards the end, but I can also say that I've now played through and completed all of the mainline Toka Race Driver games. With the series complete, we move on to the next evolution for Codemasters, and that's a game which I've never played before until now. That game is known simply as Race Driver Grid. As a newcomer, I'm really stoked to see how it looks and feels. I know nothing of this game other than a few screenshots of menus and gameplay, as well as brief snippets of its Nintendo DS port. I'll be going into it with a clear head with the sole objective of seeing what the game's like, how it compares to other games of its time, and if it's worth playing today. So is this game dead in the water, or is it one of the most underrated racing games of its time? The answer will soon be found out, as today we dive into Codemasters Race Driver Grid for the very first time. I hope you all enjoy the video. Race Driver Grid first made its way onto the scene here in the States on June 3rd, 2008, releasing for the PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. As hinted to just a short time ago, there does exist a Nintendo DS port of this game. It was released on August 5th, 2008. One thing that doesn't normally exist with racing games from this time is that Race Driver Grid actually saw an arcade release. Yes, you heard that right. Across the pond in Europe, an arcade cabinet of this game was released by Sega on November 10th of 2010. But enough about that. Today I'll be playing through Race Driver Grid on the PC. Sourcing a good copy of this game for Xbox 360 was a total hassle. Time and money are not something I have a surplus of at the moment, and my 360 is currently a couple hours away at my parents' house as I didn't take it with me when I moved to college. Regardless, PC seems like a perfect choice, as we can tweak the graphics to really make this game look good. With that said, let's get into it. When you first boot up Race Driver Grid, you're prompted to create a driver profile. On the surface, it's your average profile creation prompt, but it's when we get to the next page where this game really shines. This audio name selection screen introduces a whole new level of personalization to the game. As you race, your engineer will hype you up, calling you by name throughout the event.
Okay, Kyle. Keep her steady going up the hill and try to stay out of trouble.
They'll even call out other drivers by name as they spin out, leave the track, or crash into another car or a barrier. Your business manager in Grid World, which is a mode we'll touch on in just a brief second, also addresses you by name each time you boot up the game.
Hello, Kyle. You're now ready to race. Hello, Kyle. We've tuned up the car and it's ready to drive.
This is a small but very welcomed addition that really makes you feel like a racing driver. That being said, let's start this video off with Race Driver Grid's main mode, Grid World. So here is Grid World. It's effectively your story mode. When you first start it up, you're thrust into the prologue, a race at San Francisco in a fully tuned Dodge Viper. The track is tough, and the physics don't lend themselves to be very helpful, especially with the hills and jumps on the back half of the track, which leads into an abrupt and fast right-hander that spells doom for ill-prepared drivers with no plan of attack. Finishing the race grants you your rookie license to start your racing career. Grid World's race calendar is structured in a seasonal format, with the goal being to top both the driver and the team rankings. But, of course, you can't do that without a team or the money to make one. Opening hours of Grid see you take on hot seat offers for various teams around the world. You could be racing Mustangs in San Francisco, BMWs at the Nürburgring, or 350Zs at Yokohama in Japan. All of these offers give out valuable money which go towards the restoration of a Boss 302 Mustang in your garage, which you'll use to start your career as an owner-driver. Once you rack up 80 grand from taking drive offers, the mechanics will restore your car and then you can create your team and paint scheme. From there, your task is to climb the ladder of each national series. You need to earn enough rep points in America, Europe, and Japan to progress all the way to the Global Racing League, where the best of the best compete. The mode is definitely a grind, but it's incredibly rewarding given the various motorsport disciplines on offer. One race you could be driving a V8 supercar, and the next you're racing a Dallara Formula 3 around Spa-Francorchamps. At the end of every season, you have the ability to participate in the prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans. Or I guess, in this case, the 15 minutes of Le Mans. Yeah, obviously they couldn't cram an entire endurance race into a game back in 2007 without having serious compromises in other areas of design. But you still do get 15 minutes of good hard racing. You can either enter your own team into the event, or take on another hot seat offer with a team. The clock in the top left shows 24 hours and ticks down super fast. There's even a day and night cycle, so you get the full experience in a bite-sized format. For Grid World and the game as a whole, there's plenty on offer, and the amount of variety ensures that the racing doesn't get boring. Additionally, you can adjust difficulty modifiers, Forza Motorsport style, to grant extra cash and reputation for winning an event. Speaking of racing, let's talk about the gameplay and various other mechanics of Race Driver Grid. Okay, now it's time to talk about gameplay specifics, and I'd like to open this up by first mentioning the handling. This is a simcade game, full stop. The handling, to its credit, is very smooth, allowing you to glide through turns without scrubbing a ton of speed, but by no means is it simulation. It's very much as arcade handling can get. Now whether you like that or not is completely up to you, because I can absolutely understand arcade handling not being preferred in an environment like this. The next thing that I'd like to speak about is this game's accurate and realistic damage model. When the next-gen consoles at the time were first being introduced, Codemasters had designed a brand new game engine to go along with it. This engine was known as Neon. First used in Colin McRae Rally Dirt in 2007, it brought with it brand new graphics and technical capabilities in general that the previous generation of consoles simply was not capable of. When Grid came around, Codemasters had made improvements to the Ego engine to allow night racing, a real-time day and night cycle, new lighting and shaders, better car and track details, and lots more improvements in general. The Ego engine was multi-platform friendly too, which was a blessing given how difficult developing for the PlayStation 3 was in 2007. A gameplay mechanic that made its debut here and is still seen today in the Formula 1 series is the flashback system. If you mess up a corner or damage out, you can rewind back to before your mistake, provided you have enough flashbacks remaining. It's a great addition, but I've personally never used them as I feel it's a bit cheating for someone like myself who's very experienced in racing games. Next, let's talk about the event selection, as it is very much plentiful. A majority of the driver offers you play at the start of the game consist of circuit races in various different cars, as well as time trials and test sessions. However, there are a few other race types that make their presence known. The first is drift. Simple on the surface, but I don't know if it's just me, I just can't seem to figure out how to initiate and hold a drift in this game. I either don't steer enough or I oversteer and end up spinning out of the drift. And I'm definitely using the handbrake too, don't think I'm just steering into the turn. The second one is Toge, and I actually really enjoy these events. Every time I play them, I think of both Need for Speed Carbon and Need for Speed 2015. These events are structured in a tournament-style format. You race head-to-head down closed public roads in the Japanese mountains. Contact with other drivers is strictly prohibited, with you earning a time penalty depending on the severity of contact should you collide with another driver. The winner is whoever has the shortest cumulative time on both routes. And lastly, we get to what is unequivocally my favorite mode in the game, Demolition Derby. It's a 6-lap race on a figure 8 track. The goal? Make it across the line by any means necessary. As someone who consistently cut their teeth on Wreckfest and Dirt Showdown, this is right up my alley. The middle part of the track is absolute chaos and incredibly nerve-wracking. When you go to take that jump to get to the other end of the circuit, you have about a 60% chance of being T-boned by another car just starting their lap. It's also amusing watching the cars lose stability after landing the jump and proceeding to either plow into the next wall or barrel roll their way to a DNF. This is the best mode for sure. And of course, you still have your normal quick race menu called Race Day in this game. You can pick any event, track, and car combination you wish for some fun and efficient racing action. I briefly spotlighted this feature earlier when mentioning the story mode, but I get to elaborate further now. When you go to start any event in this game, you can adjust the difficulty modifiers to better suit your skill, as well as enabling and disabling any driver assists. One option in particular, Pro Mode, is my favorite. It prevents you from being able to restart a race from the pause menu once you begin. Your only option is to retire the car and end the race. But this interface is what's really great about Grid. It appeals to players of all skill levels. That's something that racing games don't really strive to do anymore, at least not in the way that it was done here. Sound design in Race Driver Grid is top-notch. Codemasters have always had chops when it came to attention to detail, and this game is no slouch. Collisions with other cars and barriers feel like you're watching it happen right in front of you at a real race. The soundtrack is also incredible and absolutely warrants some love here. The opening cinematic when the game first loads up contains a remix of Queens of the Stone Age's No One Knows, which I unfortunately can't play for you guys without getting DMCA'd into the literal stratosphere, but the in-game soundtrack is amazing. The opening menu theme is the one that people always come back to. Good luck not having a rhythmic reaction listening to this, because it's total headbot material. In-race music is incredible as well. Test sessions, head-to-head events, and the Le Mans race all have dramatic scores that can range anywhere from something you'd hear in a motorsports documentary to something straight out of the JRPG and everything in between. It really makes you lock in and try your hardest to get those last-second overtakes done before you cross the finish line. A very nice touch, and it sure beats driving in silence. Ian Livingston designed a lot of the in-game tracks. He's very widely known in the gaming space, especially in the racing side of things, having designed music for the F1 series from 2010 all the way to F1 23. He's also created music for the LEGO games, The Quarry, Forza Horizon 5, Batman Begins, among many other well-known titles. So how does this game hold up today? After getting considerable playtime with it, I'd say it's a perfect example of don't judge a book by its cover. Just because it doesn't have Forza or Need for Speed in the title does not mean it should immediately be swept away and forgotten about. In fact, everywhere I look, the general consensus is that Grid is one of the most overlooked and underrated racing games of the mid to late 2000s, and it's certainly better than the titles in the series that came after it. Grid 2 was seen as a departure from what made the first game so beloved. Autosport was in a sense Grid 2, but with the Gran Turismo skin over top of it. And then there's the 2019 reboot, which I saw YouTube videos of and is unequivocally a ball of hot garbage. They did redeem themselves though with Grid Legends, and that I can attest to because I did sink a decent amount of time into that game through Game Pass. Circling back now, most games don't normally hit it out of the park with their first release. If you look at Gran Turismo, it took them a few tries before the game found its footing and started building up steam. But with Grid it's different. They hit the ground running on the very first try and did everything almost perfectly, but in the end they just ended up slowing down. Every subsequent title feels like a poor attempt at recapturing what made this original game so loved and appreciated, with maybe one or two semi-redeemable releases amidst a sea of general mediocrity. While Codemasters still exists, it's important to note that EA owns them, and given this, I don't expect anything Grid-related anytime soon. They're busy working on F125's 2026 expansion, as EA has decided to start with a clean slate for F1 2027, giving Codemasters an extra year to cook up something good. Unfortunately, Grid as we know it is dead, at least for now. With all that said though, after sitting down and sinking my teeth into this fantastic game for the first time ever, I can glean one thing, and that's the fact that Race Driver Grid serves as a gentle reminder that developers can still hit it out of the park as long as they have the right playbook. Thank you for watching.